What's going on, everyone? Today is a big day for me because today we are going to be assembling and unboxing this new Camp Chef XXL Pro. I'm really excited to get my hands on this. It's going to be an upgrade from the pellet smoker that I have been using because it's got that smoke box that's included with this design here. So I'm super excited to get this out of the box and get this installed. It's been sitting in my garage for about a month. I just haven't had the time to put it together, but now that I got some time, we're going to go ahead and get this put together and then give it its initial burn-in, as well as some just initial thoughts on quality and what we're looking at here. So let's go ahead and get started with unboxing this. All right, so this did come with two boxes. I popped this open when it first came in just because I wanted to see if there was any initial damage that I can see right off the bat in case I needed to get in contact with Camp Chef immediately. But so far, everything seemed to be packed pretty well. And I didn't have any major concerns with how it looked. So now I'm going to go ahead and just unbox it in totality and see what's in all these packages. All right, so in this box, not exactly sure what this is. It's labeled left and right though. I'm going to just put this back in here and put it to the side. Then we've got a similar box here. And this looks like it is the racks. So again, I'm going to just put this back inside and set that off to the side. All right, now we're here at the main box, which is obviously going to have the entire housing itself. Again, I popped this open. It sat in my garage, so this side of the box, this box actually came in really good shape considering some of the horror stories that I have seen online with the shipping. This looks beat up here just because I had it standing up and then there was water in the garage that got to it. So the box got a little bit beat up there. But again, in my initial inspection, I didn't have anything to be really concerned about in terms of shipping damage. So once we actually get this out of here though, we'll see if there is in fact any damage. I'm going to cut open all four of these corners. That way it'll give me a nice soft workspace. And so far everything is looking good. But again, time will tell. Got to get this all out of the bags and see what we're working with. It looks like this is going to be the sausage hangers. Again, we'll put that kind of stuff aside. See what we've got in this box. Here it looks like we've got the legs, or at least 2 out of the 4. So there should be another box like this in here somewhere. So far from what I'm seeing, this looks like it's a similar finish to what is on my DLX right now, which is pretty good. It's not the stainless steel that the Woodwind Pros come with, but my finish has held up pretty good so far, and it's been sitting outdoors under a cover, of course, but it's been sitting outdoors, and I haven't had any concerns with it yet, so I don't really have any concerns with how that's going to be. Now, what I'm looking for right now, honestly, is an instruction manual so that I have an idea of where to exactly start with this. Here, of course, this piece is going to be for that smoke box, which I'm super excited about. One quick note too, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a much easier install when you have 2 people doing this. Right now I am by myself. Might have to have my wife come out here for helping me lift this up so that I don't bang anything up or scratch anything. But definitely, you're going to want to do this with a buddy. But I'm going to try to do as much as I can by myself and hopefully give you some tips and tricks on how you can do it if you're working alone too. So still not seeing any instruction manual, so I'm going to take this tape off for the doors and see if maybe it's inside. All right, so there's a pretty decent amount of stuff in here. Repositioned a little bit so you guys can get a better idea of what to expect when you get inside. Looks like this is going to be the side table. We also had this in here. Pop this open while we're here. And that's going to be, looks like, where the fire pot is. So again, we'll put that to the side for the time being while we continue our hunt for an instruction manual. Got another box here. Let's pop this open. And I think we may have found it. So we got some nice little Camp Chef stickers, and then a recipe guide, along with some larger booklets with the all-important assembly instructions. I've heard that these are total crap, so we'll see. But we're going to go ahead and get started with putting this together. Now it says tools required here is just going to be a screwdriver, looks like an Allen key, doesn't say what size, as well as a crescent wrench. So it should be straightforward, shouldn't be too difficult. All right, so I'm just going to continue taking everything out of here, opening it as I go, just so I have an idea of what parts we have. This looks like it's going to be the drip pan. The hopper is in here as well. Might be a challenge to take out of here, but I'm going to try to do it myself and not scratch anything. All right, so you got the top of the pellet hopper here along with a piece of the side. I'm just going to lift it straight out. And just like that. And the rest of this is just a bunch of styrofoam. Actually, one other box here. But we got to get the styrofoam out of the way. And from what I can see, looks like this is the last and final box. Be careful when you're cutting these. You don't want to stick your knife in too deep so that you don't scratch the finish. Yeah, this looks like it's just the other two legs. Yeah, be careful with your knife when you're slicing into boxes like this. It's easy to get through the tape and scratch the finish on this, so you don't want to do that, of course. All right, so the instruction manual says first things first, it's easier to do the installation if the door is removed. So it says open the door and lift straight up. And I think they mean when this is standing up. I've still got it laying down, so we're going to finagle with this a bit. Maybe try this. And after a little bit of persuasion, that comes off. And this is, not crazy heavy, but it's heavy. It definitely adds to the weight of it. So I would agree with them. It's probably going to be easier to take this off and set it aside. Now the next step is to be getting the legs installed themselves. So I'm going to grab those out of the boxes. And it says it should just need 12 screws. So I'm going to actually locate the parts because I actually did not find any parts now that I think of it. So we're going to look for those parts and then get those legs together and then install the legs. All right, so the bag of parts did come in the box that was with the smoke box stuff, which this is actually really nice. All of the parts do come labeled for what step they're for. So that's going to be super helpful. I'm really actually excited about that. So what I should be looking for now is the bag that's labeled for step 2. And just like that, we've got 12 screws, bag 1 for step 2. So these are the ones that we're going to be using for the legs. All right, so we got all 4 legs here. They are all the same. I guess the idea is really just to have these flat outer edges facing out as opposed to this inside. You're obviously not going to do it this way because that's not going to look right. It's not going to fit right. This right here is exactly how we're going to install them. All right, so I've got all of my screws ready here. I'm going to just get these started to make sure that I catch thread well and so that these legs will hold in place, and then we'll screw them in tight. Now, save some time. I've got this Milwaukee installation tool. It's got an offset, which is going to make it easy to get into these tighter spaces. But you want to just kind of make sure you've got this aligned in place. And this is where that second person would come in handy. So hold this for you. And once it's pretty much in place, just slowly tighten it down. And there we have it. We got one leg installed. Now I'm going to come in here and get the leg on the front on the other side. And so if you're struggling to find the groove there, what you can do is just stick the screw through the hole of the leg and then see with your eyes right here in this gap where the screw goes. Set it in place and then make sure it catches. It's a little more difficult when you're using your non-dominant hand. In this case, I'm using my left when I'm a righty. And then once you've got all three to catch, of course, you can use a screwdriver, but when you're limited on time, a drill works a little bit quicker. Now, these lower legs are going to be a little bit trickier because the legs do curve outwards. And obviously, if you're on a flat surface like this, they really don't have much space for their curve. So this is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I'll give you a better angle here. So this is going to be a little bit of a challenge because as you can see, to get these holes to line up, this leg needs space to move outwards. So this is going to take a little bit of finagling, but we'll figure it out. All right, so the quick solution that I think I'm going to go with is to grab one of these pieces of styrofoam and stick it underneath here just to give me some space to work with. And now we can absolutely get that leg installed just like that. Now these legs really will only install one way, so you can't really screw it up with how you install these. If you are going to use a drill too, make sure that you go gentle with it so you don't strip any of these screws. So I've got the clutch on this set to 12. That seems to be getting it just tight enough to where I need to be. All right, we got 3 out of 4 sides. As I was installing that last leg, I noticed the inside here looked a little bit off. Thought it might just be a shadow, but that's definitely not a shadow. Now I can probably bang this out, but I guess I did fall victim to the shipping on these. So it's thin metal, it bends easily. It's not ideal at all, but this is definitely going to warrant a message to Camp Chef. See what they want to do as far as the solution goes. But for now, we are going to go ahead and continue assembling this, but it is definitely a little bit disheartening to see that. You know, so far everything else looks good. I'll have to review the tape to see if I didn't cause this somehow throughout the installation process. I don't think I could have. There was really not much that I could do, but I'll see if any of the footage has anything that I may have done to cause this. But looks like this is definitely just due to the shipping on these. So we'll see. I'll let you all know what Camp Chef says. All right, well, so even with that unfortunate discovery, we are going to move forward with putting this together. I'm confident Camp Chef will make it right. I guess my concern turns into not so much the dent. Like I said, that can probably be straightened out. I'm just worried that this is going to cause an issue with the finish down the line. So we'll just have to wait and see what they say. All right, well, now that we've got the legs all installed, let's see what the instruction manual calls for next. All right, so the next step is to stand it up. Now, I think that wedge that I put in there to get those legs on is going to help me with getting this stood up by myself and hopefully not scratch anything. And it did. So dual purpose. That worked out. Now again, just a better look at this dent. You know, I mean, again, I don't think that there is really any damage to the finish, but it is unsightly. Definitely not what I wanted to see. Definitely not what I wanted to discover today, but, you know, here we are. I'm going to leave it as is, take some pictures, send it over to Camp Chef, see what they say, what they want to do. But the show goes on. All right, so step 3 is for the ash pot lock. Now, the instruction manuals basically just says you're going to use these screws along with obviously this plate here. This will ride up and down to lock this in place. However, the bag also comes with some locking nuts, which the instruction manual doesn't really say to use. So let's figure out what the best course of action for this is going to be. All right, so after I took a look at it for a second, it obviously makes more sense now. The instructions don't mark this though, but pretty straightforward to figure out. This hole here doesn't have a thread. So I mean, really, you do have to come in here from the other side and hold that lock nut in place and screw it together, obviously with the lockout, but makes sense. But like I said, the instruction manual doesn't really clearly state that. So this is going to be the handle that you'll use to pull up and down. So just put the screw through here, and then in the hole on the actual smoker, get behind there and thread it on. That'll stay in place for now. Get your other one. Same thing, feed it through the hole and get the nut on the other side and screw it in place. So that's the general concept. Obviously, there's going to be a rod here as well. You'll move it up to unlock it, drop it to lock it in place. Now this takes a 5mm Allen key. And of course, we'll have to get a wrench here in a second. But for the most part, I think you'd be just fine with just hand tightening it. This is going to have a little bit of play, and that's normal because this needs to be able to freely move up and down. And that's how those screws are designed, to be able to give you that up and down motion. So, like I said, 5mm Allen key. And I'm just going to use a crescent wrench to hold the screws on the other side. And again, I don't think you need to super over tighten this. So just kind of feel it out and see where you start slowing down. And again, that's really not going to go anywhere, so we'll be good there. All right, so the next step calls for installing the cover for the ash dump, which is supposed to move. Again, got to unlock that back and forth like this to cover the ash pot so that you could dump the ashes. There is a locking pin here. Make sure you've got that face up so that you're not scratching the finish. Once you've got that in place, then we come over here to this side where we do have the threaded end, and we get our bag 3 for step 4, where we have the knob itself as well as some sort of a washer here. So we'll figure out how that works in just a second. All right, so as you can see, a narrower end here along with a thicker end. Thicker end goes towards the smoker. So we're going to screw that on because, again, that's going to be the lockout itself. That's where it's going to catch. And then the knob itself just screws on as well. And that sits on the outside. So hold the actual rod in place so that you can screw this in. And we should now be able to operate the assembly like so. And lock it so that you can't move it out. Because obviously this, you're only ever going to use this once you're done smoking or right before you start. Open this up, drop your old ash out, close it back up, and start smoking. All right, so now for step 5, we're going to be installing the handle here. And so we're going to have to get inside the hopper, which is pretty narrow. So this is going to be a little bit of a struggle because I don't believe I have a screwdriver that will be able to fit in there. Because we are going to have to screw the handle in through the inside there. So we're just going to have to get a little bit creative in how we get that attached. All right, so we've got a couple of different parts inside the bag for step 5. We've got these rubber black washers, which are going to be installed here. Then we've got metal silver washers, which will be on the inside first, along with these locking washers, which will be on the outside, and the screw itself. So you'll essentially be attaching it in this order here. We've got the washer, locking washer, and screw. That'll come in through the inside to attach to the handle with the black washer. So definitely a good idea to get these all put together ahead of time so that you're ready to go when you've got the handle ready here. So first, I'm going to hold that in place, get the screw fed through, and just use my hand to get it in there. Don't go too tight so that you can still work with the other side, like so. And same thing. Screw it in. So now again, the problem now is that you do need to get that tight, especially if you are going to be using that handle. These locking washers do need to lock, and you need to use some force in order to tighten that up. So I'm going to try to figure out what I can do to get that done now. All right, so the only quick solution that I could think of is if you've got a bit holder for like a drill and it's got a hex attachment, you can take a 1/4-inch wrench and essentially feed it through. And I'm just gonna, I guess, hand tighten like this, which is probably gonna be tedious and difficult, but it's the best I've got right now to work with. So this may take a while. If you've got a stubby screwdriver, that's going to be best. Which, yeah, I mean, this is only letting me get so far before it gets loosened. So we're gonna have to likely come up with a better option here. Okay, so my solution actually was right in front of my face. Although, again, not everyone's got a tool like this, so a stubby screwdriver is still going to be your best bet. But I've got a right angle attachment for the installation tool that does fit into the hopper. So we're going to use that to tighten this down. And again, not the easiest thing in the world, but try to make sure you don't strip those screws. And that's installed. So good. But as you can see, obviously, thin metal, it's got a lot of flex. So just want to make sure you get that on there as tight as possible. Again, a stubby screwdriver is going to be the best thing to use for this. All right, so step 6 calls for installing the hopper lid itself along with the grate cover. There's no chance in hell that I'm installing this. I did take this off on my DLX because this does get in the way of when you're just trying to move pellets around. Now, do that at your own risk. That is there as a safety precaution to make sure you don't get your hand stuck in the hopper, or I'm sorry, in the auger while it's feeding pellets. But I don't intend on installing that. Again, do it at your own risk. If you want to install it, be my guest. All you're going to do is essentially feed this end here where it's got this open slot. There's a ledge that goes in there. And then this makes it actually crazy difficult to install this because you got to get back here and put a screw in. But then hopper lid with its hinges that you can see here go in there and then get installed. Again, I'm not doing that. Be my guest if you want to. All right, so I think that the easiest thing to do right now, and I'm going to see if this is going to need a washer to account for the space that I'm not going to have by not installing that guard. But open up the hinges Stick the screw through, let the screw catch, hold it in place, and get the other side. So again, this is where that second person helping you out would come into play, so that they can hold this in place for you while you screw. But as you can see, it's obviously doable with just one guy. So now again, stubby screwdriver is going to be your best friend. But seeing as I have this, we're just going to screw this in. I'm going to take care with this because these are small screws. I don't want to strip any of the threads. And just like that, we've got a pellet hopper lid. All right, step 7 is the installation of arguably the most important feature of this, which is the beer bottle opener. So just like this, let's be smart and catch the thread. This would be much easier if you had somebody holding this in place for you, as well as just sometimes using good old hand tools to get a nice tight fit on that. So set with that. And now we've also got a little grab handle for the pellet dump. And just hand tight. That was pretty much almost assembled already with the unit. Locks in place. All right, so now comes the fun part of trying to attach this yourself. So I'm going to try to get this pellet hopper installed. There's a hole here where this part will go. The temperature probe is going to go through this hole here, get fed through. And then there's some screws here and here, as well as in the same spots, just lower, where they will get attached from the inside to hold that in place, along with down here by the ash pot itself. So once we get this installed, we'll go ahead and get those screws in. Here goes nothing. All right, so far so good. Now, while I'm holding that in place, I'm going to come inside here, and I had my screws ready. We're going to try to thread this screw, which is proving to be quite difficult so far. Because again, 2-person installation. So the trick is to kind of shimmy this into place so that you can get these screws to catch and thread. All right, so that's not going to work. Let's try something else. I'm going to take this off. Be careful not to catch that temperature probe on anything and get it out. And I think I'll have better luck if I have a screwdriver in there with me. All right, so now that I've got the screwdriver handy, I'm going to go ahead and insert this again. And the trick here is to have this as high as you can get it, basically running up against the top of the housing. Again, feed the probe through. And then get it as close to in place as you can. Feed this screw through here. Get your screwdriver ready. And yeah, that's the move. Once it's held on by one, I'm pretty comfortable with just letting it go and getting the rest of the screws in. So I'm just going to try to tighten these up evenly. A little bit on the left, a little bit on the right. And then hope to hell that the bottom ones line up in place. And then there's another ding there that I know I didn't cause. But yeah, so they all lined up well. And once it's in place, it's a breeze. So just tighten all these screws down. And then the hopper is in place. Now inside here, there are 2 more screws right here that you've got to install, as well as opposite side, which come in that bag as well. So get those in place and screw them in. All right, now once they're both hand tight, while we're in here, just as a demonstration for this great feature that Camp Chef has on their pellet smokers, the ash dump, again, slides open and dumps right into the pot that'll be underneath there. Close it back up, and you're all clean. All right, so for the rack system, again, have all of your screws ready to go because there is going to be a number of these that we are going to be installing. These are labeled on the bag, which side is left, which side is right. There will be these on both sides. There's a slot here where you're going to insert the temperature probe through. And you'll notice a slot here along with the ledge inside the smoker itself. First, get this lip edge here installed back here so that you can get it into place, and then slide this right over onto this ledge where it's going to hang. And now from here, from the outside, there's going to be multiple spots for where you will screw these in. So there's going to be, it looks like a total of 6 on the left and right side there. And so it looks like they lined up almost perfectly, but just off. So I'm going to adjust this up a little bit so that I can get that screw in there. And then we'll do the same, seems like, for the outside as well. We're going to get it in from this angle. And before we tighten anything down, we're just going to go ahead and install all these screws where they've got to go. So just so you can see all of them, we got the one here, the one here, and the one down here, and it'll be in the same positions on the other side. Now obviously the other side is going to be similar. The other side, this ledge on this is on the top, so same concept. Get that lip in first, make sure that it's hung on. This one has just a small difference in that it's got these hooks. They're going to go on the outside up at the top. So we're going to screw those in along with these hooks. So I think the easiest way to do this is going to be just prepared with the screwdriver on these hooks and guide it in. Make sure you catch the thread like so, and get the second one ready. And also make sure you can catch the thread like so. So really the only difference here is just that you're installing these hooks along with the screws. So just make sure you hold them in place so that they're straight up and down, and get them nice and snug. And then just repeat with the rest of the screws. I guess what you could do is kind of go in a cross pattern as well. That way you kind of make sure you get them all into place. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is get this back plate installed. That's going on the inside here. And these nubs here are going to be sticking out and into the actual smoker. So this is going to get attached to the inside like this. So this is where the screws are going to go, but from the other side there. So again, one of those things that would be a lot easier if you had some help, but it's definitely going to be doable on your own. All right, so after some trial and error, I determined, make sure you got a magnetic screwdriver that'll hold the screw in place for you. Hold it from the inside, obviously here. Try to align it so that you can see the light coming through the screw hole, and then just kind of, again, try to catch it and make sure that you're good to go. Once you've got the one in, the rest of them should be a whole lot easier. So I'm going to come up to the other side. One other quick note too, this has a kind of a lip edge here at the bottom of this plate. Make sure that lip edge is facing that way and at the bottom. So again, it's doable. It's just a lot of shimmying around to make sure you can catch the screws. And so again, if you can find a helping hand, definitely try to do that, because it's going to make this a whole lot easier. But just as obviously an example, it's definitely doable by yourself. Just takes a little bit of shimmying around and finagling to get it right. So that's that. Let's move on to the next step. All right, so for the next step, it looks like we're going to be ready to go ahead and install the temperature probe into its correct place. There's this plate, and the instructions aren't really clear as to what order to do all this in, but you got this plate here along with this kind of, I don't know, a channel, I guess you'd call it. And so what we're going to do is push the wires up into this little notch that we've got, and then we're going to install this plate right over here. Got one screw that just barely caught thread. Get the second one ready. And now that we've got both of those installed, we're going to feed this wire back through so that we don't really have any of that in the body of the smoker. So now once we've got that bracket attached there, the next step is going to be to kind of get the temperature probe lined up. This, from the picture itself, looks like this channel is open on the bottom end. So it's going to be like so, essentially. And from the way I understand it, as the heat rises, it'll catch in here to get an accurate reading, as opposed to, I guess, going up from more of the top and getting the temperature there, because heat does rise, so it's probably going to collect a lot more heat up at the top than it would at the bottom. So get a screw ready on your screwdriver. Get this in place along with that little channel, and then just stick it through the first hole. Find the second, catch thread, get your second screw ready and in position. And I hope you all can see this if I'm not in the way, but all I'm doing is just making sure that I catch the thread. Now, what I'm noticing here is that the temperature probe plate is seeming to catch on that plate that we just installed earlier. So I made sure to push that back in right now and then continue tightening this. And as I just moved it, it dropped again. So just be careful, or push this in and hold it in place so that it doesn't drop. And there we have it. All right, so the next step is to install what looks to me just to be like a heat shield. I don't really see any right or wrong way to do this, as far as I can tell from the owner's manual. So all I'm doing is just making sure that it fits in between these two slots. And I did this a couple times. Initially I had a wiggle. Once I just got it into place, then it seems fine. So that's all we're doing here for step 12. We're going to move on to step 13. Okay, for step 13, what we're going to do is going to be installing this onto the front panel where you've got the smoke box. And so for this, I guess what we're doing is I'm just gonna, because I mean this looks like it's going to slide, as you can see here. So I'm just gonna place it essentially wherever for right now, because this will slide, so it won't really matter. You've got your screw, which again has that groove here where this will slide on. Make sure you are installing this from the inside, and then the locking nut from the outside, like so. And then same thing for the other side. And so again, stubby screwdriver is going to be your best friend here, but I can kind of get in there on an angle and get it as tight as possible with the help of a crescent wrench. So you can kind of also leverage using the crescent wrench to get this tighter too, like so. So this is going to open up, it seems, when you open the door to add your wood into the firebox. Now this is going to be hard to videotape the actual install for this, but let me show you here. This faceplate gets set into place, and as you can see, there's going to be holes for screws where they will get installed down at the bottom there and along the sides. So 5 total screws that'll get installed just like that, so that you can get your faceplate installed. All right, so we've got all of those screws fully installed. And if this thing has taught me anything so far, is that I'm absolutely missing a stubby screwdriver in my toolbox, because that one right over here was a pain to get in with the normal size screwdriver, but we're good to go. Okay, so the directions for this part are pretty unclear. From what I can tell is we've got this, I think this is the baffle itself. From what I can tell, the instructions have a picture of the top section of the smoker itself with this circle facing up. So there's a hole down here. There's a hole on the other side. There's a thread here. There's a thread here. So what I'm going to do is get this stuck through this first hole in the front, like so. Pull it out far enough to where you can then push it back to the other side. Now, the next part of the instructions doesn't really tell you what to do next. So my thought is you have these 2 different nuts and you've got a spring. It seems to me like this spring, based on the instructions, goes right there. I'm going to stick this larger nut on the outside, and then the smaller one from the inside. Now the back one only goes so far. Front one, I really don't know how far to compress that spring. And I'm just assuming that the spring has to be compressed. I'm not really all that sure. Okay, so I had to pause there for a moment to really try to figure this out. I tried to look online to see if anyone else has come across this, and I didn't see anything. So I'm really not all that sure what to do in this scenario here, but what I'm trying to do is tighten this nut. Because it's not fully threaded, it's kind of cut there. It's difficult to turn, so I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to do this, but we're going to go with it because the instruction manual doesn't really clearly state what to do. So the spring's definitely compressing. And it's cutting into the finish here as well, which I'm not a huge fan of. But what it did do now is kind of tighten this up to where it turns and stays in place as opposed to moving around earlier. So I'm sure that this is the right move. It's just a matter of how tight you're supposed to actually get this. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to tighten that nut in the back or inside. And that's just got a positive stop. So once you install the handle on this, obviously it'll turn, I guess, as easy as you made it in terms of how tight this is. I'm going to pause here again just to try to do another search online to see if anyone else has come across this. Maybe the XXL Pro has a similar setup. I'll try to find a video on that and see if anyone else has had any comments on this. Okay, so after some more searching, I wasn't really able to find any good useful information. So we're going to keep it just as it is right now. So this is kind of, I guess, what it looks like to be a fully closed position. That's going to be an open position. So I'm just going to go ahead and just install the handle now and kind of get a feel for how that works. And worst case scenario, we can always come back and back this nut off to make this a little bit of a looser turn if it really needs to be. Okay, so the next step now is to go ahead and install the door. So easy enough. We're just sliding the hinges back on. And as you can see, it closes up nicely. So step 17 has us installing this heat deflector. And really there's going to be only one right way to install this, and that's going to be obviously this facing out for the smoke box itself. Make sure that you've got this door opened up fully so that you can slide this in here. And it just sticks right in here. That way this can open up freely and close. And it's got a notch there for that rod that we installed earlier. Okay, so one thing I just noticed is that once this heat deflector was installed, you can now see where that circular part kind of closes up and opens as you turn this. So it wasn't sitting right. I tightened this spring up a little bit with that nut, and now it seems to be sitting just about perfectly flat with that heat deflector. So I think it's done properly now. That brings us to our next step, which is to go ahead and install the handle itself. You're going to obviously screw this on, and we'll see how far we get. That might also tell us another story in terms of where that's at. But then it also has a set screw here that once you've got it in place, you'll screw this in, which I'll just go ahead and get it started here. And actually that does not screw on at all. That actually will just get put in place with that set screw. So once you've got the handle just basically free floating down, just go ahead and screw this into place. This is what you will use to open up that baffle, which makes sense now that I think about it with that flat part of the thread that was underneath there. That set screw essentially sits right on top of that, so it gives it a good way to hang on tight. Now, I don't have any Loctite, but that might be a good idea to put right on here so that this stays in place. But I'll cross that bridge if it ever comes to it. Right now, I'm just going to tighten it by hand. And so obviously once that's been tightened, just like that, you use this to open and close that baffle. What this does is let the fire from the pellets come through to ignite all the wood chunks that you're going to be having in here. And we'll obviously install the drawer here probably in the next few steps, and that's where the wood chunks will go. Okay, step 19 is going to be to install the door handle for the smoker itself. So first things first is from the outside, we're going to stick this threaded end through like so. Then we've got a couple of washers, and these are bent on purpose, so don't be alarmed. This is going to go on first, and it's going to be this crescent shape facing towards the door. And then we've got the locking mechanism. And so with the locking mechanism, this is going to be important. You're going to want to install it like this. And this is notched out so that you can't really screw it up, but that's how it's going to go. Next then, again, you've got the washer, and that's going to go on here. And then you've got your nut. So you can see kind of like a lip here. That's going to face out, and you screw it on this way. And it's going to be a little tough to thread initially because it is notched out, that thread. But once you've got it on, you'll be good to go. Now, the instructions don't call for a ratchet, but I think this is what's going to make it the easiest. This is an 18 millimeter. Hold the door handle and tighten. And of course, once you've gotten tightened, you want to go ahead and just test it. And as you can see, obviously locked. So smooth operation. Seems to be working fine. So I'm going to come back in here again and just make sure that it is tightened. So again, just to test it out. Got it locked and open. All right, so we are in the home stretch here. The next thing that we're going to do for step 20 is install the drip plate. It's so simple enough. It's kind of a odd shape here, but this shorter side goes to the left, longer side goes to the right. There's a lip here. There's a lip here. That's where that sits. It's on an angle. That way everything that's dripping down here goes down here, goes towards that hole in the back, which then goes to the catch can. Same concept here, drips here, down, and to the middle. All right, so the next thing that we're going to install here is going to be the side tray, which I'm a really big fan of because it is a foldable one. So you can fold it down when not in use, save a little bit of space. But simple enough. You've got these brackets. So this edge is going to be on the outside on both sides. And easy enough, it just gets screwed into place. Catch thread on one and get the second one in and screw it tight. And then same thing on the other side. Catch the thread on the top, catch the thread on the bottom, and screw it tight. And then easy enough from there, just make sure that the hooks catch on what it actually looks like. Install it initially from the bottom, and just like that. And then when you want to fold it, just like that. Okay, obviously a pretty self-explanatory part right here, but that's where you've got your smoke box where you will put in your wood chunks. You rest it on top of that little drawer that we installed and then push it in. Again, baffle, open and close, depending on how much fire you want in there. And then that's where you would again load the wood. Obviously easy enough here. You got your ash cup and it just rests there, ready for you to empty ashes in. Now, this sausage hanging rack takes a little bit of finagling around to get it in there. So you got to you're going to see this side here, there's just kind of empty space back here. That's where it hangs. The trick now is to get this entire rack in. And so you'll start like this, get those first two edges in, and then lift up. And again, you got to try to kind of finagle it in there. And like so, you'll have your sausage rack in. Kind of, I guess I'll keep it somewhere in the back just like that. It is right there to stay out of the way of any of the other racks. All right, step 27, last and final step, is installing the racks. Now, there's no right or wrong way for these racks. It depends on what you're cooking, how much you're cooking. If you're cooking some bigger pork butts, you're obviously going to need to make a little bit more space. If you're trying to squeeze a few briskets in, same thing. Might need to fit a little bit more. If you're doing a bunch of jerky, well, the setup with all the racks in there will be just fine. There's multiple positions in here to suit your needs. So obviously here you can see there's still 2 more spots where you can put racks. They just don't include anymore. But again, if you're doing, let's say, a pork butt, you can fit that right down here. You can put a pork belly here, whatever else you wanted to do. Or you're doing a couple of briskets, move this down. You can fit a brisket here. You can fit a brisket here. You can take this rack out, fit another brisket here. You know, you can probably, in theory, put a brisket on this and take this out. So it's very versatile. A lot of different things you could do with it. Just depends on what setup you need for it. You're going to be doing sausage and hanging them from the racks. Then, of course, you're going to take all these out and just have the sausage hanging. So, I mean, aside from the dent that I've got on this thing, first impression is I think it's great, right? So, I mean, build quality isn't the best. Remember, this is $900. The Wooden Pros have better materials, but they are more expensive. But that smoke box feature is going to be a game changer, I think. So I'm really excited to use this and see how everything turns out. Now, again, that dent, super unfortunate. I'm going to send pictures to Camp Chef, see what they want to do about it. I don't know. You know, I don't know if this seam here potentially could be broken at this point. Smoke started escaping there, might affect performance. I have no idea. But ideally, Camp Chef makes it right, and I have no doubt that they will. But that is the installation. So now I'm going to go ahead and pop open the garage and do the initial burn-in on it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just go ahead and prepare for the burn-in. Now, this video, I'm not going to go into setting up the Wi-Fi because that's a whole separate process that I think I'm going to have to finagle with myself. I do hear that that can sometimes be a little bit of an issue. But what we are going to do is just run through the initial first startup process. As you can see, I just filled up the hopper with a little bit of pellets, and I'm not going to fill it up completely because this is not the smoker's final resting place. It is going to be in my yard. So I'm in the garage right now. This is just temporary for now. So I'm only filling it up with as much as I think I'm going to need for the initial burn-in along with the feed. So first things first, we'll go ahead and turn it on. Press this button to get into the menu. Move over to the right for fan mode, and then feed. The important thing with this is, of course, make sure that you have the ash drain closed so that you're not just dumping pellets right into the ash cup. And this should just fill up the auger itself with pellets so that it is full and ready to go for your first cook. So you've got to let the feed cycle run. Once that's done, it'll turn off, and then, of course, start to set the temperature to the highest setting so that we can get the initial burn-in taken care of. Okay, so now that the initial feed cycle has finished, what you want to do is go ahead and empty out any pellets that may have made it into the hopper. Into the burn pot. And then once you've got that taken care of, those dropped into the cup, what we're going to do is start with opening the garage. And once we've got it opened up, we're going to go ahead and get to the temperature setting, get it all the way up to 350 with a smoke level 1, and open up the door. The door needs to stay open throughout the entire process of getting preheated. Otherwise, you risk having this thing explode on you. So make sure you've got the door open, set it to high, smoke level 1, let it finish its startup. Once it's done, you can go ahead and close up the door. So still in the startup here, it is definitely producing a lot of smoke. It definitely smells great, that's for sure. I'm really really excited to definitely be able to use those wood chunks in here as well to get that extra smoke flavor. But I mean, so far everything seems to be working fine on this startup. So just gonna keep letting it do its thing. All right, so now that it's finished its startup, go ahead and close up the door. It's gonna get up to its temperature of 350 degrees, and we're gonna let that go for about 30 minutes. And the reason that we're letting that go for 30 minutes is because we want it to burn off any residual oils that are left over from manufacturing. So of course, we don't want any of that getting into our food. So I'll monitor these pellets to make sure I don't run out of any. But I mean, from here, yeah, and you can definitely smell the oils in there that are burning off. So we're gonna let that go for, like I said, 30 minutes, and then we're all set. All right, all. There's really not much else to discuss here. We're gonna just let this go ahead and finish its burn off and call it a day with this. This was obviously not as easy as it could be if you had two people, but overall it's definitely doable, as you can see, with just one person. So definitely let me know what you all think about this. I hope that this helps out some people in terms of getting started with installing everything on this thing, because some parts were a little bit challenging. Some of them you kind of had to just use your own understanding of things to figure out how it works. But overall, everything seems to be working fine. So, we should be good to go. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much for watching. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. Let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if you guys want to see more videos like this. And we will go from there. So I'll see you in the next one when we actually use this thing to cook something up.